So that should do it, right? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Hartman. Thanks for the update from the county. So, next we'll do, the presentation from Cuba Addiction Recovery Services. We have several people here that are representing the county and their agency that maybe could, do that, so. Welcome. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Jansen, and I am the Chief Executive Officer at Cuba Addiction Recovery Services. And we are in attendance at this meeting because I've had some discussions with Mayor Steve about supporting the opening of an opioid treatment program. Our intention is to open a program on 6 Euclid Ave in the Medical Plaza. And that program will provide services specifically to the opioid use disorder population, which is supported by the county. I do have some handouts that I can hand around with some facts about the program, along with the facts about methadone. It is a program that we use methadone to treat opioid use disorder. I know that there have been some questions that are on the handouts. Take one and pass it. Some questions have risen around hours of operation and the population served. So I bulleted that information out for the council. We are planning to run the program 6:30 to 3, 6 days a week, between Monday through Saturday. We anticipate serving roughly 50 individuals within the first 6 months. That obviously could ebb and flow depending on the number of patients actually being referred. We do know that presently we have 9 patients that we're serving at our Ithaca opioid treatment program that are coming from Portland County to Ithaca. There are also a handful, we don't have a count, but there are a handful from Crouse who they have indicated they would be interested in referring to cars in Portland because they're traveling to Syracuse from Portland. So it would allow for patients who are currently seeking treatment who live in Portland, in the city of Portland or Portland County, who are seeking treatment from neighboring counties to come into this community. I'm gonna just pause so that you guys have a chance to look at the form that needs for the kind of fact sheet that we just sent around. I know Sharon has come with some additional fact sheets that we're happy to pass around as well. I will pause there with a summary and open that up for any questions that you may have.
So you're anticipating 50 patients in the first 6 months, right? And typically they're cab or private vehicle. Are they picked up in front of the building and then left in front of the building?
Correct. They would be brought right into the parking lot where the building is located, and then the cab would come back and pick them, or usually they stay because the Josie doesn't take them home.
Is there out of county patients that would come in?
So I suspect we will see some out of county. So neighboring counties who may have patients that live closer to a Portland site-based program may send patients into Portland for treatment if it's closer. What we are seeing though is a significant increase in the number of opioid treatment programs opening right now. This is a big push across the state. So I don't anticipate that's going to be a large number. So for example, Cayuga County, if somebody lived right on the edge of Cayuga County in Portland, was the closest opioid program, it would be preferred for that patient, I'm guessing, to prefer that patient to come to Portland versus having to travel to Syracuse, for example. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. I know some of the other questions are, what about security? Do you have security?
So the program will be staffed with an on-site security guard during hours of operation. That's how we run our current facility as well. Our goal is to link their security, I want to say walkie-talkie, and every time I do that, they shake their head at me but it's the radio that they use. In Ithaca, we link that directly to the police department, so they have that ability to communicate. So we haven't worked out that detail yet, but that would be the goal. It is also monitored 24/7 inside and outside. We've actually invested roughly $10,000 in security equipment and monitoring so that it can be monitored 24/7.
why this site? Why have you chosen this site in particular? Why not any other site in the city of Portland? And when did you start negotiating with the owner of that?
The, I would say roughly, beginning of this year. Earlier, like, early spring is when we started looking for different locations. We actually looked at 4. I apologize, I don't have those addresses off the top of my head. We looked at 4 different locations when we were looking, we were having a difficult time finding a place where it would meet the regulatory requirements. So there's very specific regulations about the structure of the facility and the interior of the facility when you are housing methadone. So this site was easily renovated and it was already a medical practice. And really what we provide is a lot of medical services for an opioid use disorder. So when all things considered, the site provided the ability for us to have, like, it's pretty private. So the parking lot, I assume you're familiar with the spot. So it's a private area. The facility itself was easy to renovate so that it would meet the needs and the regulatory requirements.
So the other buildings you looked at, was that business? Were they in business areas, not residential areas? Because this is a residential area.
We were not successful at finding a space available in business districts, if you will. The other facilities that we looked at, one was located right around the block. Currently utilized, I believe, by CNA, Cuban Medical Association. Another, we were gonna look at in Comer, but we ended up choosing not to look at that one because it was close to a school. Because, you know, there was that, the one right there on 281, it was, yeah. And we also are trying to make the access to the patients easy. The other piece benefit to this particular location is how close it is to the hospital. And really, we should be collaborating with the hospital regularly in a program like this. So that was also
So cabs will be coming in now, you're saying?
absolutely coming in and out.
I had a question about the cab. Now, most of these patients will be Medicaid patients, right?
Yes,
My understanding is that Medicaid cabs from surrounding counties won't necessarily transport out of county. Right?
I think that is
Yeah.
true in some cases, yes.
Yeah.
So my question is, you come to us tonight asking for a letter of support. I didn't find out anything about this until I got a call from a constituent in Mr. Carpenter's ward last night. I mean, the fact that you need this letter like tonight, that's concerning.
So may I clarify?
Of course.
So typically we would not need a letter of support. I want you guys to be aware, so I apologize that this has not come in front of you sooner, and I'll take responsibility for that. The letter of support is not necessarily a requirement, but I do think that it is going to be a representation that we are coming in as a provider. We are truly trying to partner with this community and bring services to the community where they're lacking. So I apologize that you haven't heard of this sooner. And the urgency around the letter is because we have suggested that as an act of good faith for the Oasis, and now they want it. But it's not something that typically would be required.
Yeah, maybe Sharon can address that, because I think Sharon's from our county, and maybe, because you told me earlier that this has been presented before. I don't know that a lot
And I-
more aware about it.
Yeah, and if I could answer to that, anytime an agency is looking to provide countywide services, they have to make sure that they communicate that with our community. Under state statutory authority, Article 41 statute in New York State, that means that if someone is looking to open an Oasis outpatient certified licensed program, that they need to coordinate with the Community Services Board and our CV subcommittee. CARS has gone through extensive evaluations, discussions with that community board. And that community board represents everyone in Portland, not just the city, because they have to answer to everyone and they have to show that they're coordinating and following all of those certifications. I want to apologize, and I apologized earlier to the mayor. I think during the pandemic, our community services boards and our county boards maybe are not coordinating as closely with the city in this council meeting specifically. And I want to correct that. I think our community services boards for mental health, substance use, and intellectual developmental disability needs are moving forward on a lot of countywide strategic planning. But I think it's really timely that we connect back up a lot tighter than we have been. You know, I'd like to blame the pandemic, but let's just be honest, I think there's been a whole bunch of workforce changes and many things causing the disruption, but I'm certainly gonna make sure that I make much more countywide strategic stuff, bring it here and planning moving forward, and I hope that that helps. I've also added the methadone details. Just so you know, this is a big gap in our community. This fills a gap that we took 2 years to find any agency willing to even consider coming to Portland after Beacon left. Beacon closed up their shop and doors 2 years ago at the end of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. For a small county, a small community, opening up substance use treatment is not the first priority for any agency. The fact that CARS is even willing and interested in doing this and gone through the last year worth of incredible interviews and oversight and responsibilities to report to all these other county boards. I'm sorry that they didn't bring it here, but yeah, it's been quite a process just to get to this step.
So I have a lot of concerns with the information that's being presented as fact. A number of the different references. A number of the different references that are noted here as facts or current research are from outside of the country. And then on top of it, some of it's over 20 years old. And so are there any more recent or relevant studies that support these claims, specifically about the reduction of crime? As Councilman Carpenter noted, you know, it's a residential area. And so I have great concern about, you know, the activities that would be happening in the residential neighborhood versus maybe a business district that we've already cleared some leeway for different types of activities.
Oh, I totally appreciate that. So your first point is about data and research. I think what they're referencing in the fact sheet cards is the fact that the research supporting methadone clinic and methadone success goes back over 25 years. I, for one, worked for a methadone program when I worked in Western New York in the late 90s. I saw it there. Here we are all these years later, and it's still considered one of the best, highest supported, research supported opioid treatment programs for success. Additionally, the handout I gave you references very specific National Institute of Health references, and I can get you a wealth of research to support that. Additionally, our community has gone through the Healing Communities Study, which is a federal and New York State study that goes through opioid and helps to address the overdose pandemic that's across the country. Included on that website, anybody can go and you can get a wealth of research. Recent research as 3 months ago to support methadone as well as all the other opioid treatment.
I'm pointing to specifically the reduction in crime versus the reduction of some of the health related actions that methadone provides. I've seen some of that research in other areas. The reduction in crime is what I'm concerned about. Specifically, this notes Bangkok and Australia, two very different arenas of activity for crime, as far as what residents actually have access to in those countries versus the United States versus Portland.
We can absolutely get you the reduction in crime rates, including facts from Western New York. That's probably the most relevant New York State related data, and I can make sure I can get that to you. Methadone treatment it helps people to get out of a life of crime and into recovery.
I think what some of the folks have been calling us, their concerns are that patients can be wandering neighborhoods during and afterwards, and you know, after dealing with some of the other issues we're currently dealing with, that, it's a mixed feeling as to, is this a good suitable location for this, facility?
So people wandering the streets, I mean, I think we're all seeing social support structure in our country kind of falling apart, from homelessness to everything else, you know, cost of living. There's so many causations that are causing people to struggle with homelessness, you know, wander the streets, struggle right now. Methadone is actually one of the solutions to help prevent that, so people are getting into recovery. A lot of people who are receiving methadone go full time. I can tell you that I was in the methadone treatment program. They would show up at 4 or 5 in the morning to get their methadone dose so they could quickly run off and get to work. So it was actually a really high percentage of people employed. As far as the location and the residential location, that's come up a couple times. I would also, you know, suggest that our department currently is in a pretty residential neighborhood for the village behavioral health providers right behind the bar. That's less than ideal for our clients as well. And Syracuse Recovery, it has an outpatient substance use treatment program active right now in this community in the same, exactly the same location that they're proposing to open this, like literally the same building. So there's already an Oasis certified licensed outpatient provider of substance use in that building right now.
So you're saying that if we haven't noticed a big uptick in crime or problems because of this existing facility, we shouldn't notice that much more when ours moves in.
Exactly, there's literally already a substance use program in that building, in that location. Being so close to the hospital also helps to prevent any issues. So if patients struggling or having issues, the hospital's not far away, which makes things a lot easier for everyone to have.
My dentist is over there. There are medical related services in that area. So it's not purely residential, but it sounds like ours is already rehab the building, that you're ready to move in and you just want our blessing. Is that it?
Rehabbing the building is in the process, yes. So the site has been selected and approved. But this is, we want to do this collaboratively. So yes, we are looking for the letter of support to show we came in front of you and explain that this is what we're doing.
Do you have other facilities in neighboring, like nearby, that we could compare ourselves to? That, and could you talk a little bit about your successes there, or whether there have been problems there?
Do you mean nearby in Portland, or where else we provide service, cars provide service?
Like just outside of Portland, this is what you're gonna provide in Portland. I presume this is, yeah, surrounding counties.
Sure. So we have an opioid treatment program in Tompkins County that opened in January of 2020. We currently serve roughly 180 patients out of that facility. We have not seen an increase in crime, you know, related to that program. In fact, what we have found, we're not in a great neighborhood in Tompkins County to begin with. Like it's a rough spot. But what we have found is that people actually have come to us for help, and they seem to be more willing to come to CARS and allow us to help facilitate them, you know, getting them into treatment or getting them to the hospital or getting their medical needs met. Now that we are providing them with that location. Did that answer your question?
Sort of, you know, that's in a rough spot. This is past residences around it. Do you have another example for us?
The only other comparable example I have is that Ithaca location in my opinion. I mean, we have a residence in Trumansburg that is in a rural community, but it's on the outside of Trumansburg in the town of Ulysses. So, and it's a 24/7 operated facility. And that facility is staffed 24/7. And, you know, we work closely with law enforcement and emergency services when we have critical needs, but it's staffed to serve the patients that are there. And we're surrounded by cornfields, so it's a little, I'm not sure that we have a facility exactly like what you're.
What are the chances that people would come from outside of Portland to seek treatment in Portland? Is this more specifically for Portland residents?
This is definitely targeted at Portland residents. I can't promise that people in surrounding counties who are closer to this opioid treatment program versus one in Binghamton or Syracuse or Ithaca are not going to come here or be referred here, but it's targeted for Portland County residents. I can't deny an admission for somebody, so so I don't wanna make promises I can't follow through on, right? So there, it is possible, but I would, and we see this in Tompkins County, the majority of our patients, Kat, if you know the statistic, but the majority of our patients are served from Tompkins County.
I think one concern might be that people could come in and get dropped off and then just kind of be stuck here. And then our county becomes responsible for them as well as for our own. You're shaking your heads no. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I probably can speak to that, the best. Currently, there are people in Portland who get methadone.
Yeah.
And they're going all the way to Syracuse and all the way to Binghamton. So what they are is stuck in Syracuse and Binghamton until that Medicaid cab that somebody mentioned earlier can get them back to Portland. So our current residents are literally in that stuck in Onondaga and Broome County. Having those people come here is incredibly unlikely and probably a very low percentage. And as far as them being stuck here, no, because if you're in our surrounding areas outside of Portland and you need methadone, you're very likely to go to Syracuse, Binghamton, or the Ithaca location. We're pretty sure the only people who are gonna be coming for this location is primarily gonna be Portland people with some outliers. I mean, you gotta think about, if you're looking at the map, right? Southern Cuba County, we might have some, people in Groton who this is gonna be easier for them than going all the way to Syracuse. So it's our, bordering community, Cincinnati, Ryder, maybe, I'm thinking those are the folks that are primarily used to getting their services in Portland and feel safer getting their services here in Portland than the inner city locations.
Are people who seek treatment with methadone, are they typically highly motivated to kick their, is it heroin that they're on, or is it any of their opioid, their opioid habit? Are they pretty highly motivated to do so with the success rates pretty high?
Yes, success rates for methadone, we can give you a ton of studies to show it's one of the highest success rates. And as far as the motivation, the incredible oversight and restrictiveness of getting methadone is so intense that if you're a client seeking treatment for any opioid addiction, methadone is just one of many options. Methadone is the toughest option, right? If you're getting methadone and you're accepting and seeking methadone treatment, it means you've struck out everywhere else. Methadone means you have to stay on this. It's a daily dose. It's highly regulated, highly monitored. They are highly regulated and monitored for every single dose. You should see the dispensing machine alone. It's unbelievable, monitoring your client on this. There's no cheating the system. You have to take it. It has to be observed right there. There's all sorts of extra testing that goes on. If you're someone who this is your last result, it means that you're highly motivated to get treatment and recovery, and then you pretty much come to that final step where you're needing this help. It's really intensive treatment.
I guess one of the questions is for these people back here, because they're, obviously I know a lot of them from the, Miller Street area. These guys already made the decision where they're going. They're looking for support from us. We make the recommendation to support them, or we don't, but I think unfortunately, it's a medical complex. It's been a medical complex since I've been going there in diapers, which is a long time ago. Unless the code can come up with some reason they can't be there. We gotta support our constituents. They're doing a good program. My biggest thing would be security. I actually work for a developer that we have a Syracuse Behavioral Health in Rochester that just recently moved out. They're just, these people get treated, they leave, middle of the night, they think they just come back, knock on the door, they're hanging on the railroad tracks, everything else. That's what we gotta be concerned about. These people are gonna be there 24/7 when you're open 24/7. If they really wanna, yeah. So, I mean, it might be a point that. Right now, the medical complex is just a regular doctor's office, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, or whatever the hours are. These people are gonna be lurching in there, they're gonna want support, they're gonna want help. They're gonna be going to these people's yards to get to you guys, and you're not gonna be open. That's my concern.
Yeah,
So,
Granted, it's a medical office, I don't think at this point, I can sit here and legally tell you, I can't let you do what you're doing. These people might not like it, and I don't. Right. I got to answer to everybody,
I understand
and
that.
I think you already made your decision, you probably could open tomorrow, or maybe you already have.
Not a-
Okay, I'm just throwing that out there, I'm not trying to be, believe me, I can come across strong if I need to. But
Well,
there's no doubt in the community we need
We do need
it. Is it the right location? Obviously not, but that's your choice.
No.
Or, I mean, I said it's the right location, probably not.
Right.
I'm making sure you heard me. I think you made your decision, so we got a tough decision to make, whether we're gonna support. And if we don't support you, you might, obviously, I think you're already set in where you're going, it doesn't matter what this thing says or that says. Throw that shit in the garbage, for our lives. We need to know what's gonna happen now, what's gonna happen next.
so I think some more discussion may be had on some of the suggestions or ideas to
All people get it, please, right?
offer some of the concerns that maybe the residents will have. What council has any one more question, and then if you don't mind, I'll let the public comments come. Now that they heard the presentation, they can hopefully respectfully tell us what their concerns are, and maybe there's a way that can be addressed.
So it's gonna be more than one question, because I'm gonna re-ask one that's gotten asked twice in 2 different ways. I'm gonna ask it very straight. Will there be increased foot traffic by people who may or may not be considered undesirable by the community that they will be passing through?
there will be increased foot traffic,
Okay,
and it is likely that those people will be undesirable by the community.
okay. If the community surrounding, because I'm in Ward 1, I'm the hospital side. Billy's your side, where you guys are gonna be. I've fielded as many or more phone calls than he's fielded this week about upset community members who do not 100% want this. The question is, if the community says, we do not want this here, does that matter? Or do you just go ahead?
I think that we proceed. But
Because your community surrounding you doesn't want it, not there.
what I would love to have the opportunity to do is work through some of the challenges that are making the community not want it there, and do the best that we can do to be a good partner for you guys. So.
The prior question is one of the biggest concerns they have, the foot traffic.
So.
And that is not wanted at all. I've got another question too. What does it take to get into this program? How does a person come about being enrolled in your program?
I'm actually, so I brought my nurse manager with me in case there's any very specific questions. Are you?
Yeah. Yeah, hi, I'm Katarina, I'm the nurse manager at CARS. I also have served Portland County in the past in various stages of life, including as a labor and delivery nurse with Guthrie Portland, and at end of life in the nursing homes here. And so it's been a big passion project for me to come here because I think this will have an incredible effect. There is such robust data that supports methadone, and there was only a couple articles on that paper, and I apologize, but there's so much more. In 2016, an article came out by Johns Hopkins in Baltimore showing that there is no increase in crime in areas, there's actually the inverse, a decrease compared to commercial counterparts. So where a liquor store is in a commercial area has higher crime rate than a substance use treatment center in a residential area. So we can provide, we will send it to the mayor, what we have. Regarding foot traffic, this building's set pretty far back from the residential area, and the cabs drop off right up into the.
Right,
Yes.
yeah, all right, let's just keep, let her make her statement. She'll have her chance, Mayor.
Sorry. I have, yes, people get services by usually calling us, where we do a screening over the phone to see if they qualify, and then we schedule them for intake appointments.
And how are they made aware of these services so that they can contact you?
So various ways, so it could be via other agencies like mental health, family and children's, or word of mouth.
Okay. So, again. Mostly answered it, but what if the surrounding community does not want you there? Because, I mean, I understand you ladies are doing a great job. I can appreciate the job you do. I can appreciate the need for your services. But when a community doesn't want you there, and there's 8 of us up here elected to represent the community and the city. And I've heard nothing but, no, not in my neighborhood. What can we do? We're being steamrolled. This can't happen. How do you proceed when the community does not want you in it?
So as I said a moment ago, I would love the opportunity to talk through what some of those concerns are and work with you on how to correct them. This project is already moving forward. So I can't, I don't want to stand here and say, we're gonna do this, even though you're saying that you don't want us to, because I don't want to come into this community with that type of attitude, but you're kind of putting me on the spot, making me say that. Is that what you're?
Well, I mean, that's the question that was posed to me on the phone
The
7
project's
different
moving
times in the
forward.
last couple of days.
Yeah, and that's a fair question, you guys, and I can definitely appreciate being frustrated by this. But I'm not here tonight because I want to just come in here and do this regardless of what people think. I would rather work alongside you. So I would rather have the opportunity to hear what the concerns are, to help educate you further on what our security measures are and how that works, what our discharge policy is for patients who loiter. You know, we've had some of those things in our Ithaca location where, you know, they're not following our policies. What is the process for discharging a patient and telling them they're no longer allowed at our facility? Do we have systems for that? So what I'm asking for is the opportunity to talk through that with you guys.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And maybe we can work with a local community to work on that independently from that. I want to give them the opportunity to speak and maybe we can address some of that. Maybe we can pick this up afterwards, just come up with a plan to do that. So, thanks. So I'm gonna call the Carlos Ferro. Still want to speak, Carlos?
I'm Paul Ferrer, former alderman from the 6th Ward. I've worked at Tully Hill at treatment center. I also worked at BOCES, give a little history. I've been here for 30 years. I moved out of New York City because of the problems that were happening. Having my family members actually steal from me because they were hooked on opioids. To have this facility there is not acceptable. My house is right in front of it. The driveway runs right next to my house. So Syracuse Behavioral Health came in, didn't notify anybody. I was sitting on the council when that happened. I asked the chief of police to actually look into it. They didn't even know this happened. So this is another facility that's coming in that was never came to the community. And it is a residential area. You pass Miller Street, that's all residential. You turn onto Euclid, that's residential. Three driveways down, we're going into the medical center. Yes, that's been there. I've been at my house for 30 years. It's been there before me. Mr. Brockworth said it was before, while he was in Pampers. It's been there for a long time, but at the same time, facilities like this should have gone through the community. The community should have had a say. You're not giving us a say. You're telling us it's coming in. You don't know about the little crimes that happen right now on Euclid when we have vagrants going into the medical center back there. I've actually pushed them out, have gone to the backyard and asked them to leave. Fortunately, I have never had an incident where I had to call the police, but they have walked away. They go back there, they go to the benches where they have, for the employees to have meals. They hang out there, they smoke, they do whatever they want to do, and they do this all night long. I also work part-time security. I come home, I go out at 8 o'clock at night, come home 4 o'clock in the morning, and I see people walking around in my backyard. They drive my dogs crazy throughout the day, because what they do, they go to the treatment center, and then they stand by my fence line. Then my dog's out, they go nuts, because they don't move. They just irritate my dogs. It is not acceptable. You should have at least talked to the community members. Yes, you're talking to the county. Yes, you're getting approval from the state, but what about the individuals that live there? I can tell you, in New York City, before it was regulated, methadone was being given out, they used to give it to the patients, and they used to sell it. They used to sell it to go and get the regular drug that they wanted. Now it's regulated tightly, you have to see the dose given before they go out. I applaud that. I am a recovering addict myself. I have been clean for 32 years. Alcohol and cocaine. So I'm in favor of treatment. But methadone in my backyard is not acceptable.
All right, I appreciate that, thank you. Mr. Rainbow?
Well, we're all that there applauding what Carlos said, because we dealt with it ongoing, and I have a whole list of questions I provided to our aldermen and so forth, and I don't know if I can ask them or not, or if it has to come back. But we have so many issues right now with loitering, as Carlos said back there. People foot traffic through ours, coming across the creek, coming across people's yards on Sampson to cross the creek and go back there. I just called the police not too long ago for a user going back there that OD'd in my front yard. Thank you. And there, it's just unbelievable. We've got needles. We've got an increase in trash. Poor Dave turns around and cleans out the creek every spring and so forth, the garbage. I found clothes and shoes in my front yard the other morning from somebody having an issue. I shouldn't have to clean that up. We shouldn't have to go back there and pick up the loitering and kick people out. I know another neighbor of mine, because our properties, like Carlos's, are sitting right there. Right on that fence. So what are you gonna do about fencing? What are you gonna do about cleaning up that crap for loitering? What is gonna happen with all that? Who's gonna be responsible for when you discharge a person? They're just left to their own devices? We're stuck with them? And by the way, there is a daycare there.
Yes.
There is a daycare there. They're gonna be exposed when they go outside to see these people loitering and wandering the streets going, hey, where are we going? I mean, some of them, for all we know, could be sex offenders. Do we know that? No, but there's no, from what I've heard, there has been no security set forward that's going to prevent people using our yards, protecting our families, picking up garbage. I mean, nothing. And again, railroading us into this really stinks, really stinks. And there was a report, I did a little research. I know it was done by realtors, but it's the only thing I could find that other economic departments has done and referred to that, and I sent the link to my Bill Carpenter, that turns around and says when a facility comes in like this, property values decrease by 8%. 8%, and if it's a major facility, it decreases by 70, can go up to 17%. Who's gonna make up the difference for my property and the rest of my neighbors? Up and down the street and Euclid and Sampson and so forth, how is that fair to us? How? Then there's you talked about 6 days a week, so now we've got increased traffic, but you've got buses coming with little kids. I walked my granddaughter up the street on that corner to Euclid and Miller to catch the bus. Now she's gonna have to, and I'm gonna have to explain to her, oh, hi, that's just a drug abuser going for treatment. Don't worry about it. You know, we've got enough of that crap. Has the police department been alerted so that there's gonna be extra patrols? Because you've got cabs that come speeding now through that street. Are we gonna have extra patrols for police? And are we gonna call them for every little thing of, oh, hi, you got this guy loitered in, you got that person loitering, you got needles over here. And then. What is, like I said, when people are discharged, you never clarified what happens after they're discharged. We're just stuck with them? And why wasn't another medical facility? There's across from Joe before, there's the Hugo Medical Facility, and across, or right next door to Burger King, there is a facility that both of them are sitting vacant.
Yeah.
Why weren't they chosen? Why? There was no reason, they're already set up for medical, I don't care about Euclid being set up for medical or not. These places are just as close. And what happens? So we're close to a hospital. Are we gonna see an increase in ambulance traffic? So now we got lights and sirens in our nice quiet little upkeep community? How is that fair to us? And I don't see a benefit to the residents at all, and neither do my neighbors. There is no benefit to having this clinic in our backyard, none. So are there gonna be, now we'll go on to privacy and security, back to that. Have you gonna put up a fence? Are you gonna clear out the brush so that people can't loiter and linger and turn around and lay down and go to sleep? What about fences? I want an 8-foot fence at least, and I want it not chain link so they can climb over it.
Okay. We took notes on those.
And I have a whole, okay, I have added to the list
Okay.
based on their comments.
I think it sounds like there'll be another time we can work on some of this to try to address these concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheryl Wallace. Here.
Good evening. I live on Euclid and I've been there since 1980. And it's a lovely spot. It's just a wonderful neighborhood. I have to tell you, when I heard about this yesterday, I was very disappointed. I really feel that with this new administration, that transparency will be a thing that we can really count on. And I don't think that's always been the case. And I'm just disappointed in this because this is affecting us. And just like Mrs. Rainbow said, it affects our houses and rent and what we can sell our homes for, and it decreases. That's not in our best interest. I understand that in Syracuse, people cannot sell cigarettes near elementary schools. This is kind of ludicrous when you consider cigarettes versus opiate, it boggles my mind. We do have a daycare center, as it was pointed out, 2 blocks over is an elementary school, and children walk to school this way. They walk down Miller. I just don't think this is in the best interest for us to have this here. I'm not saying not to have it here. Sure, there's a need for it, but not on Euclid. I just feel that is not the appropriate place. What about where the buses are on Central Ave? There's DSS in that building. There are other things that in the County Office building that maybe these people wouldn't need to utilize. Mental health will be moving down to Fort Watson Street. Right now, it's right by the post office. But those are things that are centrally located. And in my opinion, I think that would be the best place because they're not neighborhoods. They're in where other businesses are located. So that's my concern, not that we shouldn't have the service, sadly, we need it apparently. But not in a neighborhood where we have many widows on our street living alone, we have children. To me, it's not a good fit, and that's where I'm coming from, thank you.
Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. Thank you. Debbie Gross.
Hi, my name is Debbie Gross and I live at 23 Euclid. I've lived there about 30 years. So my concern is this was decided, signed, sealed, and tonight I believe delivered. I think it's pretty bad that you did not have public forums, talk to us about this, answer these questions before we get here. You asking these folks who represent us to give you their blessing. I too am a nurse of 33 years. I see the need. I do not see the need in a residential area. They can get treatment. I know methadone. My dear friend is an NP in the Kraus methadone product. I know all about it. But do you know they can get their treatment at your place? And there's 2 widows I know right there. They can walk over and sit on their back porch and their back door is right there. They're in their 80s, most of them. It's just unsettling. I am too a widow. It's unsettling to me that there is stuff going up and down the street constantly. It is not unusual to find half-dressed people strung out in the warmer weather in your yard. And they live down in the creek often. I am terrified with what we have already. And you didn't see the need to come, this should have been brought to the light. Don't blame the pandemic. Don't blame things got let down. You let us down and now you're sneaking this in. That is wrong. We deserve better. Would you want this right next to your house? How would you feel about that?
Please direct your comments to Heather.
I just am so distraught, and these poor people, I thought they knew about it and didn't do anything, and obviously they didn't know any better than anyone else. I really just think that this is wrong. You are not going to get the support of the neighbors or this community, and I think you can find a better place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think there's more discussion that we can have on this topic for sure. Try to talk about that, try to resolve and reclaim what we can out of this situation. Hopefully the people that were on the sign-in list, and then maybe others, we can reach out in that community to discuss this in a forum where we can get discussions and talk about some of those answers together. So I think we'll continue that on that way at that point. But I appreciate you guys coming in, and sorry it was so aggressive to you, but I appreciate bringing it to the attention and educating everybody and listening to everybody's concerns and recognizing the community's concerns about that. Hopefully we can address this proactively so that we don't have a bigger problem than we already have. But I thank you for that. With that, we're going to go on to our presentation for financial statements for 2021 and 2022. This presentation is probably an hour long, so I want to prepare everybody that this is going to be a long meeting. The other items are on the agenda are pushed after that, so I'll give everybody a 1 or 2 minute break here, council members as well, if you want to step up real quick. Everyone's gonna go to the bathroom or whatever, because it's gonna be a good presentation from our auditor, you can get set up. But thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks for your input.
Welfare is fine. Yeah.
Keep it going.
I didn't think it was long, right, as well. It's ABC there.
Yeah. Yeah. About a year. I never seen it.
Everybody remember they have a hot light? Two council members. You want to take the podium? All right, AJ, you want to rest off the other council members? I want to get a 2-minute break, not a 10-minute.
It's like shit.
Scott, why don't you tell Homer to send it down the line?
These are the slides.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't know. I wasn't.
I'm not even.
I wasn't confident
I'm not even-
on the slideshow,
Pull that resolution.
but also visible. So
I know what's happening.
so this has been uploaded as sort of everything you guys received. It was as of 9 o'clock.
No, that's fine. You said slideshow.
Oh, you're looking. Sorry, yes, the handout.
All right, isn't that nice? That was typewriter.
Yeah. Reverse engineering, send it up, sir.
30 seconds here, we gotta get this. Deputy Chief, can you get the council members to come back and you rest of them? I mean, keep sending people out there, I lose them.
Don't get me going. Tom.
No, you already warmed up.
Yeah, I apologize in advance. I had no idea that that was gonna be a contentious. I mean, I didn't realize what it was about. I didn't know that that was on the agenda till the last meeting.
Not a problem.
Don't worry, it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm worried.
Yeah.
All right, I think we'll, Mr. Carpenter will be here in a second, right? Okay. Well, I'll just make the brief introductions here. And Sarah was hired, last year, to go through the 2021 and 2022 audits. And it's not been without, a struggle and difficulty and, a lot of staffing change on our part, which hopefully we'll lose on. So this is all raw to everybody. Everybody received this, some of it as early as late as today. And that's because we just received it and they're doing everything they can. We appreciate everything you guys have done so far to try to push this forward. The urgency to us is, we need to have all these in by the end of this month for our federal dollars funding that's coming in. So, we appreciate them making this trip for us tonight and appreciate them getting these things as best they can. There's been a lot of time and energy put towards doing this and getting it right. And certainly there's a lot here and there will be a lot more to discuss about this afterwards because it's corrective action plans. Ms. Henty and I haven't even got a chance to even talk about or look at. So I have not even reviewed the document. I have not had time since I received them last night or this morning. So we will have to further more of that, but basically this is a received file. So they're gonna make a presentation and talk about their executive summary, I assume, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, for a little bit of time this evening to review the results. These are in draft form, as you see. We are still tying up some loose ends. As the mayor mentioned, the December 31, 22 audit reports are due to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse by the end of September, so we're working hard to get everything finalized. And needed to meet that deadline. That's the primary goal as far as the timing goes. Let me just introduce, my name is Dwayne Shawn. I'm the audit partner, so I'm the kind of lead on the job on the engagement. With me this evening is Matt Ball, audit manager. He was mostly responsible for the day-to-day work. In the crowd this evening is Nate Reynolds, who's the audit supervisor. He's also on the team with us. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt. He's going to talk about some of the issues with the management comment letter. And then I'll come back and I'll talk about some of the financial statements we mentioned.
Hello. Wow. Alright, so I get the fun job tonight of talking about findings. So before we start, just want to give you kind of an overview of what types of findings we're going to go over. There are three types of findings. There's a control deficiency, which is, something that's just not operating quite effectively, or not necessarily optimal. So this might just be something small in one area of your finances and your internal control processes. And then the next level up is a significant deficiency, which could be one larger deficiency or a combination of smaller control deficiencies. That is not quite as severe as the highest level, but is something we want to draw more attention to. And then kind of the highest level of deficiency is material weakness. That is something where there's not a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement might be prevented or detected and corrected on a timely basis. That's the book definition of it. And if you look at the management comment letter, which is one of the things that you were given tonight, we look at the 2022 version. A lot of these things are very, very similar from 21 to 22. As the mayor touched on with the turnover finance department, there really wasn't a lot going on as far as correcting this stuff from one year to the next. So a lot of it kind of carried over, and we're already seeing improvements in the discussions we're having for things that are going on in 23. And then we'll also, after going through the comment letter, I'll put you to the back of the big giant packet here for the findings that go along with the Federal Audit Clearinghouse package that's due on September 30th. There's a couple that have to be reported that way. And this management comment letter is part of the reporting package. So in that management comment letter, if you look to the second page, right at the top in big bold letters, see other matters and then unresolved prior to your findings. So these are things that existed in 2020 and 2021 and were not resolved as of December 31st, 2022. Right at the top, schedule of expenditure of federal rewards. So what that is it's a schedule that just lists all the expenses from federal dollars, federal grants. And really this finding is that we are given a draft copy and we had to make some adjustments to that before we got to the final version. That's something that's been on there since our predecessor auditor had noted that. So we've carried that forward. That's been true. Something I know the finance office is getting a better handle on, even in the last 6 months, just tracking down all those federal dollars and making sure that there's tracking mechanisms in place for that. The next item down is allowance for doubtful accounts. So when the city has a receivable, there's oftentimes a need to evaluate if all of it is collectible. And through the past several years, the city has had just kind of a generic $50,000 allowance that has just stayed the same. And generally you're evaluating that over your accounts as they stand and their actual collectability. So this comment is really just, that is not being adjusted, on a regular basis. The last one on this page is reconciling your accounting records to third-party service provider. So one of your federal programs, the CDBG program, is run in collaboration with TOMA. So TOMA does an excellent job running that program. And they send regular reports over to the city, and part of that shuffle with personnel is there wasn't a great passing on of knowledge of how to reconcile those reports between what TOMA was giving and what the city was reporting. So again, just something that's already being, worked on, moving forward. Any questions before we go to the next page? Okay. On the next page, page 3, at the top, the reconciliation of cash balances to the accounting system. So again, previous individuals in the finance department had a tracking mechanism outside of the accounting system to reconcile the bank accounts to, and that was not then subsequently reconciled to the actual accounting system. So what we noticed was there's some differences between what was in this spreadsheet and what was in the accounting system. In total, the cash is fairly presented within all material respects, which is just a fancy way of saying, what the numbers in the report, we're comfortable with them. But there's some work to be done to reconcile between the actual accounting system that the city is using and the bank accounts without having this kind of third document, connecting the dots there. The next thing on this page is reporting of revenues as a reduction of expenditures. So this is a practice which is, it's not that uncommon to see. Is you get grant revenues in, and in order to track it, you group it together with the related expenses, so when you spend all of your grant funds. Fortunately, that's not the way it's supposed to be done in the accounting world. So this was something that was really prevalent in 21, where we pulled a lot of those revenues, that money coming in out, when we put it into revenue bucket rather than expenditure bucket. And even just from 21 to 22, there was a huge increase, or huge decrease in the volume of those transactions. A lot of them were fixed by the previous bookkeeper when it was brought to her attention. She was able to go through and fix a lot of those, and there was just a handful of them that got missed in that kind of shuffle, and that's a practice that, again, is already being done differently. As soon as it was brought to attention management, but we're looking back at December 31st, 2022, so that's why it's on this letter. The last one on this page is approval of leave benefits. So this is something that the state comptroller office came in and did an audit. And they had a report, and this was prevalent in that report, so something we also looked at. And there's kind of two pieces to this. There's allowability of the payouts, and there's approval. So there is, in the contractual languages with individuals and bargaining units, there's allowability for these payouts. What the comptroller's office was partly honing in on was the approval of the specific payouts. And that was something we didn't see consistently in 21 or 22, was that when I submit, cash in some sick or vacation time for one of these payouts, it wasn't always being approved in a formal manner before payout, sometimes just because it was backed up by contract. So it was allowable, it just didn't have that formal, document with a signature or something, otherwise evidencing that our cashing was leased. Any questions on any of those? Yeah, right. He's correct. So on the next page, the last one of these unresolved prior to finding is the capitalization policy. So this is something where when the city purchases equipment, there is there's kind of two pieces to the puzzle there. There's an operational side where you might be tracking the equipment. And then there's the accounting side where if the equipment is a certain dollar amount, or it's gonna last a long period of time, I put it on my fixed assets and I depreciate it year over year, over what I call its estimated useful life. So this is something where, we like to see a formal policy that says, here's the dollar threshold of the items that we're going to put on this list, and here's how many years we expect, we expect certain categories to last and so on. Just so that there's consistency year over year. So that's something where, there's no policy now. So as administrations that come through, sometimes different things get capitalized. And then a new administration comes in and those things are not capitalized anymore. So the policy provides consistency with that. The next set of kind of bold letters, you can see there's current year findings. So these these two items did not exist in 2021, but we're adding them in 2022. So the first one is approval and review of journal entries. So there is a informal process to review journal entries before they're put into the accounting system. But at this point, there's not a formalized process to approve those either in the system after they've been entered, or to check that the entries that are being made in the system are the ones that were informally approved before they were put into the system. The next one is a disaster recovery plan. So this is focused on information technology. So in the event of ransomware attack, some type of outage, catastrophic failure of a server, there is a need to have a plan in place. This is something over the last couple of years that's become kind of a big piece here. So just again, kind of a policy area where there's a formal plan in place to have regular data backups and process to follow in case there is something that happens to that IT infrastructure, because it is so prevalent in your accounting systems and all the operations of the city, rely on this IT infrastructure. Any questions? Yeah, great. Oh, okay.
I noticed that when I went through your documents here, that you made a lot of comments regarding no change from the prior year.
Yeah, so for any of the ones that were unresolved from the prior year, if there was no changes from the prior year, we just note that. I can draw your attention to the recording of the revenues as expenditures, and that one does have, a little narrative down there talking about how there were significantly less adjustments from in 22 as compared to 21. But, some of them like the capitalization policy and whatnot, it's kind of a is there or is not there, so there's not a lot to narrate as far as changes. But that's certainly something, these are in draft form. If there's a feeling that there is some missing context, that's something that can be revisited as well. Did I address your question?
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I could just clarify that a little further, I would not, for example, capitalization policy, from the management perspective, have nothing additional to add. We do not have a policy. Many of these findings were here before, so that would have been the 2020 audit. We were receiving 21 and 22 at the same time.
Yeah.
I would imagine by this time next year, some of these that are on the prior year and current
They
year,
will have a comment.
we will have a comment
Yeah.
that these will hopefully be resolved, as many of them can be resolved as possible. I do not want to put the auditor in a situation where we're going to press somebody for something that does not meet the standard.
Okay. No. I just want to point out that I did spend some time with them, I didn't have, regarding these documents, so. They are very thorough. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Okay, on the last page of this document, you'll find again big bold letters, result prior to findings. So these are ones that existed in 21, but have been corrected in 22. The first one wire transfer payments, so those were not being approved regularly before they were being done. That's been resolved, and there was a new process in place that started early in 2022 to take care of that. So it's no longer a control issue. And then the second one, interfund balances. In the past, there was not regular reconciliations done, and at year end, there was kind of an entry of course to balance. And that was not needed for 2022. Those entries were, those accounts were reconciled and were in balance, without any need to. So now that we've gone through the management comment letter, I will turn your attention to the big bound packets with the 2022 on the front. And if you just turn it over and go to the last couple of pages. Page 62 on the bottom. So page 62 is the schedule of findings and question costs. So this is something that is part of the reporting package that goes to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. It's a rigid format that we just have to check the boxes in. So as you look down this page, you'll see at the top that the type of report we're issuing is unmodified. There is a material weakness. So that's selected as yes, there's significant deficiency, and there's non-compliance. And those are on the financial statement side. As far as the federal awards specifically, we do what's called a single audit or audit of the federal awards. And when we audited those awards, there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies related specifically to the federal awards. But there was some non-compliance with the grant agreements. And we'll get into that in a page or two here. So down at the towards the bottom of the page, you'll see two kind of numbers there. They're ALN numbers, it's assistance listing numbers. It's just the way that the federal government categorizes the money that they give out. So the two federal programs that we audited was coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, or ARPA, or COVID money. You probably heard it called a lot of different things. But this, the city was what's called a non-entitlement unit, or an NEU. So they received an allotment as part of that program. And that was one of the programs we tested. And then the community development block grants, that's the program that's run through TOMA. We also did our audit over that program as well. And then at the very bottom, the oddities of the city did not qualify as a low risk, and that's because we missed the 9/30 deadline for the 2021. Was one of the driving factors in that. So again, it's kind of a rigid checklist level. Yes, no, then, the city is either higher. So in this case, it was not a low risk. If you turn the page to page 63, so there's 4 findings that are in this format of the schedule of findings, question, cost. And it's a lot, but again, this is coming from the federal regulations, kind of tell us what things we need to include here. So this first one, finding 2022-001, and it's just something, it's a numbering system that the federal government wants us to use. This issue we just call the financial reporting. This is the material weakness that we talked about. So this is not just one, there's not one thing that causes this material weakness for the city. It's a combination of many small things kind of rolled together. And as you look at this finding, it really focuses on the consistent oversight of financial reporting and in some areas, a lack of reconciliations of certain accounts, and the need for audit adjustments. So about 2/3 of the way down the table, page, you'll see a table, and this is broken out by opinion units or fund of the city. You can see across these different funds, the volume, dollar amount of entries that were needed from what we received initially to what you're seeing in the report here, kind of broken out into assets, liabilities, expenditures. So There's a significant volume of entries and significant dollar amounts, which is why, this rose to the level of material weakness, along with some of those other control issues that we discussed. And this is something that is a repeat of finding for 21 and also for 22, or 20, sorry. Any questions on this one? Okay, if you turn the page. This next finding is capital project reporting. This is the significant deficiency. So the capital project fund by itself has a little more difficulty reconciling that than the other funds. And this again is a repeat finding that's been on here since 2019 in this format from our predecessor auditor and has been rolled forward. So it really just comes down to the tracking of capital projects, the funding streams, these related expenditures and whatnot, and just making sure that those are all balanced. And really, the turnover, need to put carpet on that, but the turnover and also significant volume of projects going on in the city, has caused for some difficulties in reconciling those. So again, something that's already being worked on as we move into 2023, but it's something we wanted to draw your attention to here. If you turn the page to the next line, page 65. So this is budgetary over expenditures. This is the non-compliance with the financial statement audit side. So for our purposes, we're looking at what's called functional areas. So that's really the lines in the financial statement. When you look at those lines in the financial statements, in the general fund and super fund, which both have voter approved budgets, and are what we call major funds, they have some lines of expenditures where the final budget is less than the expenses. So that's where you get this over expenditure at the functional statement level. So you can again see kind of 2/3 of the way down the page in the table, what specific functional areas have these over expenditures. And this is, being non-compliant, it's kind of a tricky thing where it's, if it's $1 over, it's non-compliant. So there's not really consideration of materiality when it comes to this. So it's really just something that, and again, we've already seen improvements here. You guys, I'm sure, are seeing a lot more budget amendments come through. That's part of the, user responsible officials and part of the corrective action plan has a little more narrative of what's being done to correct this moving forward. Any questions on that? Okay. The last one in 2022, on page 66, this is the non-compliance specifically related to the federal programs, so that the coronavirus state local fiscal recovery funds had a specific report called project and expenditure report that was required to be filed by April 30th, 2022, and then annually thereafter by those that received these funds. The city missed that deadline and is working to file that report. Even though it's not done timely, we're working on filing it, to get that information reported. And really this finding is just saying the city, didn't file that report that was required. One thing that is not in this report, that is in the 2021 report, is the late filing. So we anticipate filing this financial statement package by the September 30th deadline for 2022. So for the 2021 statement, since we missed that, in the very back page of the 2021, it's the same format that just says you didn't file it by September 30th, 2022 for the 21 statements, and that's resolved then in 22 since we filed it. I know that was a lot. Are there any other questions?
I just want to clarify something. So the 2021 audit was based on the year 2020.
2021.
21.
Yeah.
But much of the expenditures in 2021 were set in the budget of 2020.
In 2021.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking.
Yes, for the calendar 2021.
Right.
Yeah, typically the council will adopt sometime in December.
Right.
To implement a budget. So the 2021 budget, starting January 1, 2021, would have been acted upon by council
In
in December 20.
That's my point. That's my point. That's exactly my point. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? All bring back to the line. Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. So I kind of want to talk through the numbers, and provide a little bit of information about the financial position of the city. I'm going to be talking a lot from the executive summary, which is on top of your packets. And this executive summary is mostly 2022 information, but there is also some trend information in here so that you can see comparisons to 2021 and going back to 2020. So this document gives you a little bit of a, not only analysis of where you are now, but kind of where you come from over the last 2 years. The first page or the first couple of pages really of the executive summary just hit the highlights or give you a one sentence about all of the different reports that we've issued. And I'm just going to kind of read through those quick. So at the very top, we're issuing an unmodified opinion. That's also known as a clean opinion on the financial statements. Means that we believe that they're fairly stated and don't require any modification. So that's the kind of opinion that you want to have. So that's good news that you have that. Because we have to do the audit in accordance with government auditing standards, which is part of the requirements for the federal single audit. We also have to issue a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. And so right in the middle of page 2, we reference that. There's also a clean opinion on that report. But there are those weaknesses and deficiencies that Matt had talked about. The first 3 of those 4 that are in the back of the down packet all relate to this audit under government auditing standards. And then at the very bottom of page 2 here, because the city spent more than $750,000 during 22 in federal money, we also have to do this single audit process. And so that requires another report on internal control and compliance, but that one's specific to those federal programs. And so we have a clean opinion on that report as well. We also have the non-compliance that Matt talked about at the very end, not filing that annual report for the ARPA program. In total, the city spent almost $925,000 in federal dollars during 2022. Page 3 reference is made to that management comment letter that we already walked through with Matt. And then the other item that's discussed here on page 3. So New York State DOT is a little bit unique. Any organization that has a federal single audit and spends $750,000 a year in state DOT funding is also required to have another report on internal control and compliance. That one's specific to New York State DOT programs. The city has that, so another clean opinion on that. And the city spent almost $1.9 million in New York State DOT funding during 2022, and we didn't have any findings in that report. And then on page 4, the reference made to a communication letter. Auditing standards require that we communicate certain aspects of the audit with you at the conclusion. So in your file is a communication letter. That letter is mostly boilerplate information. There's a couple of things in that communication letter. There's reference to a new accounting standard that became effective during 2022 with respect to leases.
This is not something that the city alone adopted, this is something nationwide, for all municipalities. There weren't any material impacts on the city's financial statements for 2022. We did have to do a lot of research and a lot of digging to confirm that there wasn't anything material, but that there were no changes to your financial statement because of that new standard. And then at the end, the last couple of pages of that communication letter is some charts that show some of the corrected and uncorrected misstatements that we found during the audit. And some of those were highlighted in that first comment that Matt had talked about in the back of the bound packet. So beginning on page 5 are some financial pages. There's the first couple of pages here, page 5 and 6 are some nice pie charts. I should point out that these charts are for the city as a whole, so these are not specific to any fund. This is all the funds put together for these charts on page 5 and 6. Page 5 is a chart on revenue for 2022 and 21, and it just kind of shows you where the money comes from. You can see in both years, a little bit more than half of the city's revenue comes from property taxes. Roughly 20% comes from charges for services, that's things like water and sewer rents, home and community fees and things like that. And then roughly 16% in 22, a little bit less in 21 came from grants, mostly state and federal grants, and then other resources brings in the rest. And then on page 6, a similar chart for expenses. So this shows where the money goes. In both years, public safety is about half of the total expenses of the city, 47%, 49%. Transportation, a little bit more than 10% in both years. Home and community services includes the water and the sewer departments, includes the community development block grant programs. And so those are roughly 20 to 25% in both years. So those charts are kind of helpful, I think, to give you a sense of, overall picture and how it's broken down in broad categories. Beginning on page 7 of that executive summary is some information about the general fund. And so now you see we're showing 3 years worth of information, 2020, 21, 22, so that you can get a sense of change over those couple of year periods. Page 7 shows the assets and the liabilities for the general fund. Between 21 and 22, assets grew by about $1.5 million, $1.4 million in the general fund. Roughly $500,000 increase in cash. And then about a $750,000 increase in due from other funds. That's because both the sewer fund and the water fund owed the general fund more at the end of 22 compared to the end of 21. So that's why that number went up. Down at the bottom of the page, liabilities increased about $1.6 million from 21 to 22. Most of that increase is in the unearned, unavailable revenue. That mostly is the ARPA money that the city received during those years that hadn't yet been spent. So there's a lot more available at the end of 22. That number also includes unpaid property taxes. So that's what makes up almost all of that $2.6 million at the end of 22. And then the other big difference is due to other funds, just like the water and sewer funds owed the general fund more at the end of 22. The general fund owed other funds more at the end of 22. Page 8 shows the fund balance for the general fund. And then at the bottom of the page, it shows the revenues for the general fund, again, the same 3-year trends. You can see in total, fund balance declined down to about $4.3 million at the end of 22. The city has about $5.4 million in restricted fund balances. That's all the different reserve funds that have been established. And so the unassigned fund balance is a negative number of about $1.2 million at the end of 22. And then down at the bottom of page 8 is the revenues for the general fund. In total, revenues increased about $1.5 million from 21 to 22. Most of that increase is state sources for different additional state, mostly the CHIPS touring money that came in during 22. Page 9 is the expenditures for the general fund at the top of the page, and then just fund balance for the other funds. You can see at the top, the expenditures of the general fund increased about $1 million from 21 to 22. Public safety increased about $750,000 from 8.2 million to a little bit more than 9 million. Transportation increased from 2.9 to 3.3. General support declined quite a bit from 2.6 down to a little bit less than 2 million. And then the other category, which is mostly home and community, as well as interest on debt, that increased about $500,000 from 21 to 22. The other funds, fund balance, the sewer fund declined about $400,000 from 4.5 to 4.1 million. The capital projects fund, that shows a large negative number. That number is going to continue to be negative until your short-term bond anticipation notes are converted to long-term debt. Once those get converted, that debt goes out of the capital projects fund and that negative number goes away. And then the non-major funds, which is everything else, increased about $400,000. So page 10 and page 11 are condensed budget summaries. Page 10 is the summary for 22, and then page 11 is the summary for 21. You can see here that revenues in the budget were just a little bit less than budgeted in total. The final budget for revenues was $24,685,000, and the actual revenues was $24,625,000. So just a $60,000 shortfall in the revenues. And then at the bottom of the page, you can see expenditures were underspent from the final budget by about $2.2 million. You do see the negative number in the employee benefits line as one of the lines that we talked about in that over expenditure finding that we had talked about earlier that Matt had mentioned. If you look at page 11, you see that revenues came in quite a bit more than budgeted in 2021, about 1.1 million. But expenditures were quite a bit more than budgeted as well, about 1.3 million. Most of those changes were that revenue being reported as a net of expense during 2021. And when that got adjusted and fixed, the budget numbers weren't updated. So that's the main reason why in 2021, there are significant differences between the final numbers and the budget. The last page of financial information in the executive summary, page 12. So this page relates to the government-wide presentation. So this is not just the general fund, not just any fund in particular. Financial statements for governments are presented in two different formats. There is the fund basis presentation, which is most of what I've been talking about as far as the numbers go. But there is also a government-wide presentation where all of the funds are combined. Capital assets are included. All of the city's debt. The city's share of the state pension system obligations. The city's actuarially calculated retiree health insurance obligation. So that government-wide presentation is really everything all put together. And that's what this page represents. So this shows net position of the city. You can see at the end of 22, there was a net deficit of about $44.6 million on that government-wide basis. Main reason for that is that retiree health insurance obligation has no allowable mechanism to fund it. Right, so you've got this huge liability on your balance sheet, and you've got no asset to offset it. So it shows up as a negative net position. The analysis in the middle of page 12 is meant to highlight that. So if you look at that beginning net deficit, and you kind of take out those things that you're not able to fund, the pension system obligation of about 1.8 million, the retiree health insurance obligation of about 77.9 million. If you take those things back out, you run restricted net deficit is about $4.7 million. And then the last line on there is just the trend of the debt limit, which has continued to grow. The 2020 number that's on there was done by the predecessor auditors, and to be honest, I'm not sure that I agree with that number, but I'm just going to put it on here because that's the number they gave you. The last thing that's in the executive summary is just we wanted to update you or mention to you future changes in accounting standards. I mentioned that change that took effect during 22 on leases. That's highlighted at the top of page 13. There are a couple of upcoming changes to accounting standards. There is a standard on basically on computer software agreements. That's going to be effective next year. And then the year after that is a standard that changes the way municipalities account for compensated absence or paid time off, basically, and how that is calculated, accrued, and accounted for in the financial statement. So that standard is going to be changing in a couple of years from now. I did want to not go through in any great detail, but I did want to at least walk through the 22 financial report and kind of highlight, show you what it is, where it is, so that when you go back home and you're trying to go to sleep and you're wondering, what can I read that's going to put me to sleep? I'll tell you where the best page is. So on the 22 report, the first 4 pages are the opinion. I mentioned it's a clean opinion. So when I first started doing audit reports back in 1995, a clean opinion used to be 3 paragraphs. Now a clean opinion is 4 pages long. We still don't say anything. It just takes us a lot longer to say. If you're not going to read through this whole thing, I won't be hurt myself. I encourage you, if nothing else, to read through the management's discussion and analysis. So that begins on page 5, it goes through page 5J. It is not pages and pages of financial statements. It is a nice narrative format. It's very high level summary. There is no detail in here, but it gives you a sense of where things are from a financial standpoint in that few pages. And the one place that I really want you to read begins on page 5F. And that 4 or 5 pages is a really nice narrative as to what's going on at the end of 22, what's affecting the 23 budget, what's affecting future years. All right, so this section, my compliments to the mayor, I know to Ms. Henty, they both worked really hard on this section to make a good representation and a good presentation as to kind of what's going on from a financial standpoint. So I really encourage you to read through that section. I think it's really, really well put together, and provides some good context and some good information. The financial statements themselves begin on page 6 of that bound packet. The first couple of pages of that is the government-wide presentation that I mentioned. So again, this is all of the funds, all of the capital assets, including infrastructure, all of the debt, your share of the state pension system, your share or your actuarially calculated retiree health insurance, everything is all on those numbers in page 6 to page 7. And then beginning on page 8 is the fund financial statements. So those obviously are the ones that you're more used to seeing on a regular basis. You see there the general fund, sewer fund, capital fund, and then the rest of the funds, all those smaller funds, there's a schedule in the back of the report that breaks those down for you. The notes summarize, the notes begin on page 12 and go way, way too many pages. The notes summarize your significant accounting policies. And then there are some notes in here that provide some additional detail. I just wanted to mention a couple of those so that you know where they are. On page 22 of the bound packet is a note on capital assets. So this shows for you the cost of capital assets with the estimated historical cost, the accumulated depreciation that's been recorded to date. At the end of 2022, the city had a little bit more than $69 million in capital assets recorded in the financial statements. The pension note begins on the next page. The pension note is long. It goes for several pages, but the one thing that I wanted to point to is on page 24, right at the bottom of the page. So typically, the pension system, or the New York State pension system, I should say, reports a liability. It gets spread out to all of the local participating employers. Because the New York State pension system had a really good year for investments during the 21-22 state fiscal year. At the end of the state fiscal year, March 31 of 22, the state pension system was actually funded at more than 100%. So instead of a pension liability, you actually have a pension asset. So the charts at the end, at the very bottom of page 24, show your share. The $882,000 number is your share of the net pension asset at the state level. And then for police and fire, there was a statewide liability of around $950,000. But both of those systems are pretty well funded. The ERS system was funded at 103.7%, and the police and fire is funded at 98.7%. So almost 100% on the police and fire. The note on retiree health insurance is right after that pension note. I don't want to read through it. Please don't make me. And then I did want to point to one more place in the footnotes on page 37. And then continuing on to the next page, these couple of pages give you information about the different restricted, the different reserve funds that the city has, mostly in the general fund, but there's also information in the consumer and the capital fund. So you can see on page 37, the ending balances for each of those funds. And then on the next page, chart showing the activity for the general fund, restricted fund balances. After the notes, is some supplemental information, page 44 and 45. So budgetary schedules, these are a lot more detailed than the ones that we looked at in the executive summary. And then some supplemental information about the pension system, the retiree health insurance system. Those schedules for the non-major funds are page 52 and 53. In case you wanted to see those in detail. And then those other reports on compliance and control that we talked about, required by government audit standards, required for the single audit. Those begin on page 54, continue through page 58. And then the last place that I wanted to point to this evening, on page 59 of the bound packet. So this is a listing of the different federal programs that the city spent money in during 2022. As I mentioned, the total was a little bit less than $925,000. You can see at the top of the page, roughly $550,000 of that total was CDBG programs. Another roughly $350,000 in ARPA money. And then a little bit in FEMA and a little bit in Bulletproof Vest partnership program. So that I hope gives you at least an idea of where these things are, where it is in the packet. I know it's a huge amount of information. I wish I could have gotten it to you weeks ago, but the struggle continues. But we're this close to the finish line, so I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Do you have any questions? Yeah, the struggle was. It is a struggle, and we really appreciate the patience and putting this together, the team as well. You guys, very professional and good to do.
I would just like to say thank you to Sarah, Blaine, Matt, Nate, and the others on the team that weren't here. I'd also like to thank all the department heads. So while we were able to meet the 22 deadline, it was definitely not easy, and it couldn't have been done without all of their help. There was not a day that I didn't send out audit requests pretty much since I've been here, so I appreciate everybody's support with that. I will follow up and say if there are any council members that want to go through this a week from now or 2 weeks from now in more detail, kind of at your own time, feel free to call and schedule a meeting with me. I'm happy to do that. And then as we work towards corrective actions, I don't necessarily think it will be easy to provide an update at every meeting or even once a month, because some of these things take time, but I'm happy to do something quarterly if that's the later.
I think the corrective action plan we have to start working on by the end of the year would be great to give an update on that.
Thank you.
And Stephanie picked up a lot of open ends, jumped right in and had some other personal crisis that was, I thought we have to do it even then, so we appreciate it.
I will second that.
Yes.
We're talking less than 5 months.
That's the time, something that she, had other things to do, and she still put us first. So thank you for that.
Nice job.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for, you made it so it wasn't that,
No, this was very
It was very informative. We appreciate it. Details, I think it needs to be detailed. We appreciate it again next year. Hopefully with more, less efficiency time, more the other time, but we know it's gonna take a while to get out of it. So we're committed to making that happen and we appreciate it.
Great.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Sandy, thank you for your help on this. All the work you've done. And department heads and other staff in that department for sure. So moving on, so we were going, where we at to now, mayor's report, so I'm gonna make this brief because, so we attended the, 911 ceremony, thank you Chief Sandy for organizing that. We continue with the town gown and, Parker Schools, we'll talk about that briefly, just a quick update, and, that's, the end of my report, so we can move forward. So we'll go through the ward report, Ward 1.
So I get to attend the 911 ceremony, second time, actually third time I've been able to attend. Absolutely awesome ceremony, it gets better and better each year. Of course, right through the rain, everybody was a professional, and I want to thank all of the uniformed participants who showed up and all of the veterans. It was a great, great ceremony. Paving in Ward 1 going really, really well. Nick and the crew are just, they're storming through, getting the bad roads done. We really appreciate it. I've gotten some thank you comments and phone calls via email, text, and direct contact. So I'm passing those along to you and your department, Nick. My ward says thank you. I want to thank Ward 1 and Ward 6 for the amount of people who reached out to express concerns about different topics, some discussed tonight, some that will be discussed in the future. I think it's great that they feel like they can reach out to us, and it's just a phone call away. I've gotten far more phone calls than I've gotten emails. And again, it's 315-715-1979. If you guys need to call me, any of the constituents from anywhere in the city, most importantly Ward 1, because they're my peoples, but I will help with anything, anytime, anywhere. And I want to thank you for the open lines of communication. It's easier to represent when we know exactly what we want. That's it.
Thank you. Ward 2.
Ward 2, I had a meeting, with Mr. Adams from the water treatment plant. He said the combined heat and power is running at capacity again, so that's good news. He said we're producing more electricity than the plant needs, so we are exporting it again, which means more for us. We also have to deal with Chivami that recently started. And in Cayuga Heights, their digesters have been under construction, so they needed help with their capacity. And we're helping out with that, and it's bringing in some money and also helps produce more gas that we can then sell. And that will last until October unless their schedule is set back. If that should happen, then that's one price. And he said he's been working on his budget with Ms. Henty, and she is a pleasure to work with. I wanted to announce that we will have a Ward 2 meeting about Parker School at Parker School on September 28th at 7 p.m. This meeting is primarily for the people who live right around Parker School, but it's open to the entire community because we want to find out what the community will support in the school. And the committee has been discussing lots of options, so we'll talk about that as well. And I'm hoping more committee members can join us at that meeting. In other news, it continues to be noisy at night. It's interesting because I did not know about the concerns of your constituents until tonight. And that was really moving to hear how they feel their neighborhood has changed. And sometimes I feel like when I talk about the concerns of my neighborhood, other boards can't relate because you don't experience it. And now I know how that feels. So we continue to have noise at night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday. And I would really like to see some kind of education at the college about what it means to live off campus in a neighborhood before kids are allowed to live off campus. I think that would be helpful. But we appreciate the support that we continue to get from the codes department and from the police department. they respond as quickly as they can. And I just want to remind people that if you do call the police, and I encourage you to call the police if you're being disturbed, or if you witness something upsetting, like somebody too inebriated to walk home, something like that. Be aware that they have a lot of calls, and be patient with the response time. They'll get to you. So that's it for the second word.
Thank you.
Okay, 3 items for Ward 3. One is continuing working with codes. We're dealing with some issues and it's being addressed, and Roy and his crew are doing a great job. The George Street is moving along. I see the city trucks and bulldozers on Elwood on just about every day, right, Nick? And they're there. So doing a great job, and the neighbors are very appreciative. And then finally, this is more citywide. Last week, the mayor and I went to the businesses that had been awarded the micro enterprise grants. And that was so enlightening to see not only what they're doing and the vision that these businesses have, whether they're established or brand new, but also how appreciative they are of what we are doing at the common council level, and giving them the ability to grow their businesses and to grow the city. And so that was very good. That's it for me.
Thank you. Ward 4.
All's well in the 4th ward.
Ward 5.
Also receiving reports, from local constituents about concerns that were mentioned here tonight. Changes in the neighborhood, hopefully there's other solutions. That said, there are some constituents concerned about the schedule of pickup, of different debris, yard debris, to be exact, in the morning.
Ward 6.
Obviously, item number 4 is coming up. This situation's pretty bad. Everybody's heard at least my constituents had to say, very upset over what happened, not happy with the county either, that they were not transparent with what's going on. They knew what's going on, and then just drop it on us. So
They can't hear, they can't hear.
just about the county, not being transparent with us with this issue, very upset with them. They don't seem to care. So, I mean, we can try to work together. Obviously, it's not good work. So I don't think this is over with. So let's keep working on it.
Ward 7.
Just real quick, Clinton Ave. You already know Main Street looks like a war zone. But Clinton Ave looks like it did look like a war zone. I don't know, it looks like a war zone regrowed up. And believe it or not, I have more calls than I've had in the last 6 years in common council over the weeds and the stones. I know we're working on it. I told people to pull the sons of bitches or spray them with Roundup. And I'll supply the Roundup. We bring a strike there. It's a shame that we spent all that money on that darn road. It looked great when they redid it the second time, but just put the fabric down because we're happy with fabric. And it gets caught in it and it's crowds.
So we'll discuss that a little bit further later.
Soon, please.
Yes. Ward 8.
Just a couple things, Random Park is still moving along regarding the, tennis and pickleball court. Just waiting for, asphalt now and fencing. Also attended the 9/11 ceremony. Regardless of the weather, there's still a fair amount of people that came out for that event. Also fielded some calls regarding the proposed methadone clinic. There were several concerns there regarding why their neighborhood, so I guess we addressed a lot of that tonight. And I'm still receiving calls regarding how we're dealing with the homeless population. they're still moving along, they're still in the neighborhoods and we're still leaving trash behind. So, I don't, I didn't have an answer for these folks. I said, we're trying to move them along and, helping those that want the help and those that, don't want the help, and, we don't know what to do. So, that's why I'm leaving it, at this point. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Approval minutes. We get a motion to receive. Sullivan, Scott, any questions on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
He wasn't here.
Okay, resolution number 1. Resolution to accept the 2021 annual comprehensive financial report.
So
Resolved that the city of Cortland County Council on this 19th day of September 2023 accept the 2021 annual comprehensive financial report as presented by Ensero and Company.
Motion by Ms. Sullivan. I'll second. Scott second. Any questions? They left, so you got.
No questions allowed.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
aye.
Councilmember Pinella.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carpenter. Aye. Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Councilmember Michael.
Aye.
Agenda item number 2, a resolution to accept the 2022 annual comprehensive financial report.
Resolved that the city of Cortland Common Council on this 19th day of September 2023 accept the 2022 annual comprehensive financial report as presented by Ensero and Company.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Mr. Scott, any other questions? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Pinella.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carpenter. Aye. Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Councilmember Michael.
Aye.
Agenda item number 3, a resolution to amend the 2023 adopted budget by $442,151 to recognize revenues not appropriated in the original budget.
Resolved that the city of Portland County Council on this 19th day of September 2023, excuse me. That the 2023 budget be and hereby is amended in the amount of $442,151 as outlined in the accompanying table. And be it further resolved that the city of Portland County Council declare a 2009 AL 9700 international dump truck.
You don't have to read that.
As the associated attachments, and the associated attachments, and a 1987 hot seat, 981A hot water high pressure washer as surplus property.
Mr. Scott. Thank you. Mr. Beckwith. Any questions for Ms. Cynthia on that? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Pinella.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Aye.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Aye.
Councilmember Michael.
Aye.
Agenda item number 4, you can, just pull that resolution, if there's any reason to bring that up, so it would be, it's a new point at this point.
Pull it.
I'll take a motion to pull. Ms. Sullivan, Mr. Thompson, because it was on the agenda, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, okay, so that's the pull. Agenda item number 5, a resolution to authorize the fire department purchase of a self-contained breathing apparatus.
Resolved that the city of Portland Common Council authorize the fire chief to enter into an agreement with Municipal Emergency Services for the purchase of an 83 Scott X3 Pro SCBA and appropriate additional equipment needed for the amount of $632,000 with a FEMA contribution of $568,800 and a local contribution of $63,200, which will be divided as predetermined by a memorandum of understanding with the 3 fire departments.
Motion.
I'll second. I'll second.
Ms. Pinella. Any questions on that?
Oh, no, that's my.
Any questions?
On something else, I get it. Once we vote on approve something, we can't go back to it, correct?
I entertain a question. If you have a question, what should be?
When you want to finish,
Oh, we gotta call this vote first, then
Yeah.
I'll have that discussion at the end, if that's okay. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else, any questions? Ready with the question?
Councilmember Scott,
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan,
Aye.
Councilmember Pinello,
Aye.
Councilmember Lane,
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson,
Aye.
Councilmember Carpenter, Councilmember Beckwith, Councilmember Mullin.
Aye.
Agenda item number 6, a resolution to create provision in Article 7, parking standard. Parking standing and stopping with city code of ordinance regulations, and all night parking in the municipal parking lots.
Resolved that the city of Portland Common Council pass a resolution updating Article 7, parking, standing and stopping, section 11-62, all night parking to read as follows. The parking of vehicles is hereby prohibited on all highways, roadways, or municipal parking lots within the corporate limits of this city between 3 AM and 6 AM, with the exception of specific signed area within the municipal parking lot designated for residential permits. Vehicles issued a current city of Portland residential parking permit may park in a signed residential parking area of the municipal parking lot at any time of the day or night.
I'll move it.
Now, Ms. Lang, so parking has been a big phone call, you guys got. It's, the changeover in parking has been, an adjustment and, I think still some adjustment needs to happen on the parking lots. One of the things we missed when we pulled the odd even parking lot, that's where the law was written to do the overnight parking. So we realized there was no enforcement property after we had rewritten that. So this is cleaning that up. There'll be more to follow. So
And this is consistent with the legislation that the council approved of to avoid that local law process every time we want to make a change to a rule like this. Like the mayor said, I think it'd be helpful as we clean this stuff up again, to strike all that other language that we don't. But this is just another step in the right direction.
another layer, if you will, but I appreciate that DPW and changing all the signage, they dropped, as we know, there's a lot going on in their department of, paving, you know, they're grinding and they're gonna start paving next week. And some of the areas and continue through the month. We get the rest of them done, right now, starting tomorrow, so we're about to grinding all that in. But they really went above and beyond and fit this in to make this happen, make this change, that needs to happen, and we'll work through the bugs and work through the issues as we did with the others. And I think it'll be businesses that'll be easier for everybody in the long term, but the change has been difficult to listen to phone calls. Thank you, Ron, for dealing with that. Anybody else have anything else on resolution number 6, call 6, please?
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Pinello.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson. Councilmember Carpenter. Councilmember Beckwith. Councilmember Meyer.
Aye.
Agenda item number 7, a resolution to review intermunicipal agreement to provide wastewater treatment services to the village of Holmen.
Resolved that the common council authorizes the mayor to negotiate a new contract between the city of Portland and the village of Holmen to continue providing wastewater treatment services.
So
Okay, Ms. Sullivan, Mr. Carpenter, any questions?
was the point of including the old agreement just to show us how old it was? In the
Yeah.
70s?
Well, they're somewhat anxious to get this resolved, so they can apply for a grant, so there's just kind of hoping you would adopt that document, but as you can see, that document was pretty ineffective, and we had been meeting prior to this, before they became a sense of urgency to discuss this, and I guess there were previous attempts, but yeah, I guess.
Microwave's been out since the 80s, right?
Yes, yeah,
So it's at least.
so it gives you an idea of what we need to clean up to try to get that resolved, so we'll be working. What's that? Send it upstream, right, send it back, yeah. Pump it back and see how it happens, but, yeah, so that was the intent originally, we cleaned that motion up so we'd have a chance to negotiate some of that ahead of time.
Thank you.
Yeah, anybody else? Okay, move it, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Pinello.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson. Councilmember Carpenter. Councilmember Beckwith. Councilmember Meyer.
Aye.
Okay, under discussion, I got a couple other items to add besides Parker School, but we'll jump real quick to Mr. Beck. What was your question on? You had a question on previous.
Item number 4.
Item number 4, okay.
I guess I'd like to,
Alternative to vote it down.
yeah,
Should make that point. I would thought that that would be.
well, we were talking and it's happened so fast, it kind of, part of it was our fault, but.
I mean,
We can't sit here and support it, no matter. Or at least that, vote.
I think that's been made clear.
and it's got shoved down our throats, you know. So,
I think
what you guys wanna do,
I think
I
that's-
didn't know if we could bring it back up and do it again or not.
I mean, I just think that, I think it's more important to take the proactive approach, which we'll talk about now if we want, that's one of the discussing items. You know, certainly Mr. Carpenter's district, I'd like to make sure he's included and to sit down and we heard that, I think they'd be willing to address some of the concerns. I think we're going to have to be dealt with a lot of these concerns. That's why it would have been nice for us to know ahead of time. Because, you know, increased police presence, you know, the trash and all the other issues that come with it. But there's some great concerns that I have, like fencing and some yard crossing. We spent a lot of time cleaning up a house on Miller Street, so I know a lot of those neighbors very well. Because we spent a lot of time over there, actually cleaning that area up, as Mr. Carpenter will attest. So, and we don't wanna lose that control necessarily. I wasn't even aware that the other agency was in that either. I'm not saying to you, I think,
It's a done.
I think what, the reason I would think that it might be not necessarily a positive thing, because there's no explanation. If we vote it down and we say no, then that's saying that we don't necessarily want that tool in the toolbox, so to speak, which I think treatment is a tool in the toolbox. Go back to, you know,
Yeah, why don't they-
Tom's statement, you know, and then we're not saying, none of us are saying we're not for it, but
Right.
but the point is, I think what to go for, where it is in location, but I think that that's part of that whole tool that they need to have preventative maintenance, you know, for the homelessness and all the other issues are. It's a very complicated issue. We have, like I said, 5 different approaches to try to get this and try to get people there. Some people need that immediate attention as Ms. McDougal addressed from the mental health side. There's been a lot of successes from those type of programs. So I don't want that to be clouded. That was my point of tabling it, because I don't want that to be clouded as that's why we don't want it.
Right.
Because I don't think that that's the flavor of everybody here, but I think we're all,
No, I didn't.
like,
do that.
I think zoning failed us in this case, not necessarily our current zoning, take no offense for it. But our zoning failed us in the sense that that being in that residential area
I've
is
never been there to begin with.
very difficult to deal with.
Well, the
And I-
fact that there's a childcare facility there should have.
Nearby, I think, nearby, yes, for sure.
I do think tabling it was the smartest thing we could do because by tabling it and not voting tonight, although the constituents don't want it, and I don't see why we won't vote down our support as proposed. We have an opportunity to help leverage for the community, especially Ward 1 and 6, who are both scared out of their mind. I mean, everybody around that area doesn't want this. We have an opportunity to leverage things like better security, more fencing. And by the way, if we're gonna have to run patrols over there, that means the whole city pays for that. That comes out of tax dollars. Maybe they ought to be kicking in a little bit to do more security. I just think tabling is a good idea because it's gonna leave leverage on the table. I do agree, however, that if nothing changes, that, I mean, I'm gonna guess is 100% vote down. I don't think we'll support it as is. I know I won't, my ward won't. I know Billy's won't. It just won't happen.
Yeah, I think independently, you know, I think overall for the city is a concern, so I think we need to address it a little.
But I agree, it is a tool, just maybe put in the wrong tray in the box.
Right,
It should be somewhere else.
Okay, all right, give it down, so you guys got it. But again, you know, Mr. Scott, Mr. Carpenter, anybody else that has some interest, Ms. Henty, maybe you have some experience in this field previously as your resume with the state. And maybe you could have us facilitate that. You dealt with a similar situation. I think we talked about. Maybe you could be a facilitator as well. And then anybody else that has some interest, just shoot me an email and we'll continue on. And, Mr. Carpenter, I'll let you know if you want to leave your residents, we can start with this list. The good residents that would be able to talk in a positive manner to get what the concerns addressed. If we can't change it, then let's work together to make the best we can. That would be the situation.
If we're not cooperating, obviously, they're trying to be as nice as possible.
They can't hear me.
They're trying to be as cooperative, they're making them sound like they're cooperative, but they're not. They're done, it's done.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna put it where they want it.
Yeah,
That's it.
To mitigate the landscape of the building, to make them do, spend thousands and thousands of dollars, can we do that?
I think we can. I think they're really willing to, I think with the agencies that we've dealt with, in mental health, Oasis, we have direct line with Oasis, we're working with them on a homeless situation now. And some of the other issues that we have in our city, necessarily on Great Republic, but they're working with us now, and they have the ultimate strength, and I think we're approaching them with a realistic approach to have those concerns, they'll step up as well. I know that some of the other supporters in the area have talked independently, that they would put together, which I don't think is a long-term solution to make sure that area is cleaned up and taken care of, maintained, and walking through and set up groups to do that. I think there's that much support in the community to do it. But I think we're better off utilizing that leverage. I think we can mitigate some of the concerns and not isolate some of the problems, because we can't control that anywhere, but we can do everything we can to mitigate this as best we can. Anybody else have any suggestions for that? So that's where we'll move that forward if we don't mind. Clinton Ave, obviously that's an area of sort of contention. We're trying to close out that grant. Once that grant's closed out, then we'll take the next action. Level 3 of trying to get that cleaned up along that area. In the interim, I'm sure, DPW will be down and to clean up those weeds to get them looking decent through winter.
And you don't got enough help at DPW.
Well,
Time to get to the other end, they're gonna turn around.
When I pull them, they've done them once, and, we just do it one more time before winter, hopefully next year we'll have some kind of solution. But it's not gonna be cheap, it's not gonna be easy, it's a very frustrating venture, well, let's keep trying to do everything we can to play back on those changes that happen. But it's, I don't know where that's made that works, but I saw in Syracuse, I actually took pictures of it, they had the exact similar thing and ended up just planting grass. So I don't know how many steps they went through before they got to grass, but so I know it can be done, but there is some changes I have to do there and it'll be significant. And we'll be planning on that in the future, but everybody needs to be patient until then, but the rest of it looks great. And, we're gonna continue down Groton Ave with not that similar situation, so, with what it is from Church Street up, so that doesn't exist after Church Street. Talked about parking downtown, we talked about homeless, so now Parker School. So I don't know, anybody want to update, or I'll just, so, we met this past week, we met with a couple other areas of development, so we met with BOCES to look at doing something, I can say that one. BOCES to look at doing some options in that building. We talked to some more local developers to talk about their interest and level of support. And then we talked to another group, a guy from Syracuse that had some good input for possible other uses. I don't know if we should, we can bring some of them on. So that was very positive. We've had numerous meetings. Every other week we have a meeting. I think it's going very positive. We're at the point now where we need to get some zoning updates and stuff on it, and talk about some of those issues and concerns, and we'll continue on our forward path of trying to create as many options as we can there. Yeah, cover it all.
Covers it for
Oh, yeah.
So yes, when we get those options, we want to put them before the public and see what the people of Portland will support.
Yeah, so in your September 28th meeting, I think you said the point of having that ward meeting, which again, Mr. Scott, I would try to encourage there's a lot, Ward 2, you're right across the street. Or Ward 1, I'm sorry, Ward 1 people there to come as well, but I think the idea is to try to get some public input on what they would like to see there, right? And talk about what they wouldn't want to see there. So one of the tasks we took on as a committee was to just talk about what optimistically we want to see and what the covenants that we want to keep there, let's say like the playground or the sign or the original structure of the building. What are the covenants we want to keep and what are the ones that we would be willing to let go? So that would be the intent, hopefully, of that meeting, to be able to do that, get them up to date, so everybody knows that we're, again, listening to people, and I appreciate everybody doing that, taking those phone calls, calmly talking about it, and getting them to come in and politely discuss what their concerns are. That's an important part of being here, that's why we're here. All right, with that, if anybody else has anything else, move to adjourn. First by Mr. Scott. So shady, I'm sorry. Looks like you wanna stay. Okay.
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It really was as long as I.